This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America Mayor Live. And tonight, uh, we are about 300 or 400 miles from Hurricane Helene. Helene. My mother's name was Helen. Actually, her name was Elena, and it got changed to Helen over the years. Um, well, the hurricane should just about now be hitting Tallahassee, which is about, we think, 400 miles from here. We went out about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago to see what how the fringe of the hurricane would be. And we'll show you some of those pictures. But let me just show you right now, if we can go to the map, where the hurricane is now and where it's going. And it is, let's see if we can put it up. There it is. So it is right there, about right there. Let me get the right thing here. It's about right there. Right there. It came from over here, all across here, and it gained momentum over there. So it's going to hit in Tallahassee, can be up around here tomorrow, and then I don't know. It'll probably go about like that, in that direction, which means it'll have, like, when we were down here. Can they see this, Ted? If I do that, when we were down here, which is where the beach is that we went to, the hurricane was about over here. So it was even closer than it is in Tallahassee. But in any event, it was pretty bad, including hard to get out of the car. And then it would tail off, and then as it heads up, if it stays over land as it's supposed to, it'll slow down. I think right now it's a Category 4. I think land. But it'll start to slow down. It'll be down to 70, 80 miles an hour winds as it moves along. And and then it should peter out over the middle of America. It would have been much more dangerous if it came up this way, because as it goes over the ocean, it gains a great deal of strength, and it keeps moving back and forth. So that's Hurricane Helene. What we are which is the biggest money laundering bank in Eastern Europe. He knows all the offshore bank accounts. There were witnesses that I made available to the crooked FBI that assured me and my colleague Bob Costello that they had the numbers of the offshore bank accounts, not just to Biden, but all the other politicians that were getting paid off by the second most crooked country in the world. It didn't change. Zelensky did nothing in the period from the time he came in to the time of the war to fix it. In fact, he brought Kolomoisky, the crooked banker, back. when he had been exiled, and the World Bank didn't want him involved in banking. Plus, he's got all the records on Poroshenko and the people in his administration that were taken probably well over 100 billion, 100 million rather, in bribes and money. So he's steeped in crime and covering it up, and he's a hero because we have a crooked administration. I mean, he would be a hero to them. And you can't tell me that they're not whacking up some of this money. It would be almost impossible for them not to. And the idea that it goes to the American military industrial complex doesn't give you any comfort. Come on. Would have been that the Russians interfered in the election, and it was a foreign campaign contribution.
And that, so what they claim Trump did, right? What the accusations about him and Russia
just did.
Is that exactly what Zelensky's doing right now?
With Zelensky. Well, it's exactly what they should all be prosecuted for it if they were going after Trump. Zelensky came here. The first thing he did was attack the vice presidential candidate on the Republican ticket, J.D. Vance. Called him radical. Now, he wants to come here and he wants to get money out of our government, and he wants us to be supportive of him. And the first thing he does is interfere in the election. Tell me that wasn't planned. Then they gave him an Air Force plane and flew him to a Democratic press conference in Pennsylvania. Show him the when you can.
Yeah, sorry.
The film of Shapiro making a complete jackass out of himself.
Yeah, I mean, we'll show that in 20 seconds.
Well, the reality is that Zelensky went to a press conference with the Democratic candidate for the Senate in Pennsylvania, hotly contested race, Democratic candidate for Congress, and the Democratic governor. No Republicans, no bipartisan anything, and who paid for the plane? It was an Air Force plane that he went down on, and they had a bunch of missiles. And tell me if a Republican did this, it wouldn't be a national scandal. I mean, the little guy signs a missile. That's like signing a bullet, isn't it? This was gun control day, and this guy's signing a missile. I mean, that's like all the guns that you're talking about in that missile. So they have a big press conference at the White House decrying guns, and this guy's signing missiles that are going to be used if Zelensky has his way to bomb Moscow, which is why he went to the White House today. Except, here's the video. You see Zelensky back there, the little short one. See up there, smiling. Yeah, kill a couple of Russians, Zelensky. They killed you. I guess he killed them. Maybe some collateral damage. A couple of civilians get hit with that missile, Shapiro. We're going to celebrate it. We're going to sign it. You see, they don't get held accountable for anything. Now, that's an entirely Democrat press event for the two candidates for Congress and he's flown down by, the Biden people and the Harris people make him available on the plane. And then today he holds a joint press conference with Harris, not Biden, with Harris. She's not the president. What's the? There you go. Look at him. See, he's basically at the level of the guy's belt. There you go. That's not a campaign. Look at it. So, if they were right about Trump, the only crime that was possible, which Hillary, of course, made up the facts and paid for this, but the only crime at the core of that, there's no crime of foreign interference in election. It shouldn't happen, but I can't think of a crime of foreign interference in election. In fact, you got like First Amendment issues about if they interfere and they just say something like he did. But there's a whole group of lefties who spent 50 to 70 million trying to prosecute Trump for that. And they just did it in the wide open. So that's a foreign campaign contribution, according to them, what Zelensky did. And they should all be prosecuted for it. Her, Biden, whoever paid for the plane, the creeps down in Pennsylvania. And what the hell is he doing coming here, interfering in our election? What's that all about? Finally, the cynical result of all of this is, as the Wall Street Journal made clear when the little guy got up this morning, they don't agree. The White House doesn't agree with him. It says that they found his plan to be, before they heard his plan, U.S. skeptical of Ukraine victory. This is what he woke up to this morning, knowing he was going to come to the White House. U.S. skeptical. It offers no clear path to a Ukraine victory. So if it doesn't offer a path to the Ukraine victory, then it's a path to endless war. And you say, well, why would anybody buy into that? Because it's endless money. Please don't be naive. Too much at stake here. It's impossible that amount of money passed between the crooks in the Biden administration and the crooks in the Zelensky administration. And a lot of that money wasn't stolen. Might account for the fact that they didn't do as well as you might think for $200 billion. They should have probably won the damn thing for $200 billion. You know, the Russians, particularly at the beginning, were completely screwed up. I don't even think the Russian soldiers want to fight. They had all the morale on their side, and that switched. Now they're having a hard time finding people that will fight. And people are getting other people to go like we did in the Civil War. I mean, the whole morale thing flipped around because this guy's no leader. I mean, everybody in Ukraine knows that his rabbi is one of the crookedest guys in the Ukraine. You can't follow somebody like that and give your life. I mean, the whole conscription thing in Ukraine is all screwed up, and very much abused. Kind of like when the Irish were paid, when they first came over as immigrants to go fight for other people in the Civil War. And after 2.5 years, according to the Wall Street Journal, there were a lot of Europeans, like the Brits, and that believe that Ukraine has earned the right to counter Russian forces. So basically what he wants to do is he wants us to lift our restrictions on Ukraine's ability to use long-range missiles inside Russian territory. And he wants the U.S. To give the green light to use the weapons as Kiev sees fit. The president of Finland agrees to that and is pushing Biden to do it. Britain is pushing Biden to do it. The prime minister of Denmark basically is saying, we're in a stalemate. The foreign minister of Poland wants him to do it, but the chancellor of Germany doesn't. Chancellor of Germany is afraid it'll cause a world war. He's also afraid that the idea is to hit Moscow and to cut out, maybe not hit the civilian population, but to hit its all of its sources of power. In other words, cripple Moscow. Now, Putin's going to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, sure, that's good. Good job, shrimp boat. Yeah, good job. What do you think Putin's going to do? What do you think, Ted? If they used our missiles, which Putin knows have to be done with our help because they don't have the slightest idea how to operate them. Well, I mean, they crashed the first F-16, and that we supplied them. And this guy put his name on it. I mean, that might be the one going to Moscow. The jackass in Pennsylvania puts his name on it. What do you think Putin's going to do if they knock out the power at Moscow and cripple it? I'm going to tell you what I think he's going to do.
You would know, yeah.
He's going to take out Kiev. It would be a perfect excuse to level Kiev. I mean, this guy's a murderer. He's a killer. But he's smart as hell. And he's not a wimp. he's not a wimp. He's not. He will fight back. I mean, what would we do if somebody, some foreign country, no matter what we were doing, took out the power to New York or Washington, bombed it? I mean, Biden say thank you. I don't want to fight a war and let it happen. But any other president who was a man, I mean that in the sense of had principles, would of course fight back. So, I mean, this may be the one thing that the Biden administration is doing that has any kind of common sense, which is, don't widen this thing, but win it. So how do you win it? And so Blinken says they're going to win it. Meanwhile, they won't let him do what he thinks he needs to do to win it. And what he needs to do to win it could cause a world war. So now you have an endless war within Ukraine where Ukrainians get killed, Russians get killed, which seems like, why would you do that? Because it's a great opportunity. Another 8 billion just went down the drain. And meanwhile, he's got people sitting there that stole billions over the years from Ukraine, which he could go seize. But he doesn't do it because he's in cahoots with them. And this guy is attacking Vance. Vance has every right to be skeptical about money going to Ukraine because it's not going there for the good of the Ukrainian people. There's not a plan to win this thing from the beginning. I mean, if it was going to be won, it had to be won at the beginning. They had to stop Russia from coming in. And if we were going to help them, that's when we had to help them. And that might have been, I don't know how Putin could have, I mean, maybe. I mean, you would have taken risk that Putin would have looked at that as our being, going beyond NATO and going beyond. But I mean, you're defending a country from being invaded. That's one thing. Well, the country got invaded and they took 20% of it, 30% of it. They got it nice and secure and they're growing there. Now you're going to attack their country. I mean, tell me I'm wrong, but wouldn't Putin fight back? If you did something really, really destructive, they think it's going to make him negotiate. I don't think he's a simp, a simpleton, and a coward, and a measly little appeaser like our people. I think he's going to fight back the way a strong person would. A person. Now, he is an evil person, but he's still tough guy. I mean, I knew a lot of tough people that were bad guys, but they were tough as hell. And so you got to be tough, even though you're a good person. Well, that excludes the heads of the Democratic Party, who just bring us war all the time. And this is endless war. So we'll take a break now, Ted, and we'll come back, and maybe we'll have Vicky Palladino on the line. We'll see. And we'll talk about Eric Adams. We'll be right back. Delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please Donate now. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. Well, we've discussed again the shocking interference in our election by Zelensky that goes unaddressed, except he walks away with $8 billion from a guy who corrupted himself massively in Ukraine, Biden, and everybody ignores that. The guy took, we know for sure, 8 million out of there, and we are led to believe that Zelensky has records that would take it up to about 20. We also know that Zelensky has a massive number of prosecutions in his own country of the people who stole billions from Ukraine that he could go after to fund this. And much easier to get money from the U.S. and who knows how it's getting whacked up. And wouldn't be the first time the American military-industrial complex. I mean, the whole Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was passed because of the military spending, because of defense spending. I mean, we can wave the American flag, but they don't. They're not all corrupt, but a lot of them are, and it's a major problem, and it has been a major problem since the 50s. And again, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was passed because the defense contractors were paying bribes all over the world. So these are not canonized saints. And a lot of the prior Ukrainian corruption and the whacking up of money with the United States took place under the guise of defense appropriations. It's money. And they take money no matter what in a crooked country like Ukraine. The people are fine people. The leadership of their country is one of the most corrupt in the world. And nothing has changed that. The war has not changed that. In fact, a war becomes an opportunity for these people for more theft. Always been that way. Even when they're legitimate wars. I mean, the Second World War, there was a hell of a lot of war profiteering. That's the euphemistic way of saying bribery. So Trump is going to go back to Butler, Pennsylvania. I talked to him today, and I told him I'm worried about him. I am worried about him. I believe, and I told him this a year ago, really at the urging of Bernie Kerik, I told him that they've tried everything else. Watch out. I mean, be careful. They may try to kill you. And by that, I meant the people that don't want him in office. I'm a very, very hard-nosed prosecutor. And whenever I faced a murder case, I laid out all the possible suspects. And suspects generally get generated based on motive. So you figure out who's got. Stop being silly about it and naive. Just write down who has the biggest motive to see Trump dead. Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. I'm not saying they did anything. I'm just asking the question. That's straight out question. Now, and they sometimes go over the line. The Secretary of Commerce, was it on Morning Joe? Said the other day, Raimondi. I mean, she is a real nitwit. But in any event, she said he should be exterminated or eliminated.
Extinguished. We'll grab that clip. We'll grab that.
She should be extinguished. And then little Mika said, well, you give her a chance to fix it up. And she said, well, I mean, thrown out, just thrown out. But I mean, the use of that word when you got people running around like these two characters that tried to kill him, that doesn't inflame them. I mean, the second guy, Roth, just about repeated what Kamala Harris said about him. Also, now we're talking about motive. The guy on the left has a pretty big motive to get rid of Trump, doesn't he? You think the gravy train is going to continue on the Trump? You think the little guy there is going to be getting bit? You think he's going to come to the White House in February or March of next year if Trump is president? He can walk away with $8 billion, no questions asked. No, in fact, Trump might arrest him for campaign interference, or he might arrest him for. Probably won't. I would. You know, I wanted Hillary prosecuted, and he didn't because he saw a bigger picture, which, you know, I respect. I understood the difficulties in that. We'd become like a banana republic if we prosecuted. Well, we did because they did what he wouldn't do. Now,
Let's extinguish.
Boy, she really is kind of. I hope the kids weren't watching it. She's kind of scary.
Let's play this clip.
Come on, creep. Let's see what you got to say, creep.
Like, how did we get here? Let's extinguish him for good.
It was like a bug right there. So you felt.
Like, how did we get here? Let's extinguish him for good.
It was like
how did we get here? Let's extinguish him for good.
It was like a.
Well, that she does. Well, I should be fair because they never fair. They never. I shouldn't be because they never play the full comment.
Exactly what would happen. And I said that women of Rhode Island would be protected. That's real protection, stepping up and leading. You know, what he says is the opposite. It's just another lie. Like, how did we get here? Let's extinguish him for good. We have an answer. We have a remarkably talented candidate.
And Biden does. And we got 20 million people in this country, or 10 million, or 15 million. And they've added, I mean, one of the major crimes they commit, Jerko, is rape. And Biden and Trump didn't protect. Well, Trump didn't have that happen. It's your administration that's getting all the women raped. I mean, and the rights of women, what? It's the right to kill a 7, 8, 9-month-old baby in the womb. That's the right we're talking about. That's the, I mean, this is really hilarious. Reproductive right is the right to crush the skull of a 7, 8, or 9-month-old baby, or suck it out of the womb with a vacuum cleaner. That's the big thing the Democrat Party has to contribute. Let's continue the trend in New York where more black children are aborted than born. That's good. You like that? I mean, they applauded for that in the New York State Legislature.
Well, on that note, speaking of New York, we have on the phone a very special guest. We have New York City Councilwoman Vicky Palladino.
Hello, how are you?
Good, Vicky. I heard you this morning talking about the extraordinary, horrible. I mean, I feel so bad, no matter whether he did or didn't do it, that a mayor is indicted and his house is raided. But how do you see this? I mean, you're a Republican. You know the pulse of New York City better than anyone.
You know, Rudy, I felt actually the same as you did. You know, really troubled, saddened. 111 mayors, and this is the first one to get indicted. You being in the position that you serve, as the mayor of this city and U.S. attorney for the South District here of New York, you understand what's going on probably better than most of us that sit on city council. I actually wanted to ask you, Rudy, what did you think about this indictment?
Well, I'll tell you two things. I'm sure crimes were committed below him.
Right. Right.
Even though I'm not going to take individuals because they have the presumption of innocence. But I mean, for a long time, I've been pretty convinced that there's a lot of kickbacks going on, and the city is very corrupt. Now, is he involved or not? I would say you got to be careful. I prosecuted maybe 50 people in the Koch administration. Koch was totally honest. He was half asleep, but he was totally honest. Now, a lot of people didn't believe it, but I knew that as the prosecutor. And second, they say, well, they searched his home and they searched my house and they searched my law office. And then a year and a half later, they had to write a letter to the grand jury saying they had no evidence that I committed a crime.
Right.
So where there's smoke, there's fire. You got to be careful. The guy's entitled to the presumption of innocence, and they shouldn't throw him out of office like they threw Biden out. after the people elected him, even if we didn't vote for him. I didn't, you didn't, but the people voted for him. We got to respect that. We got AOC saying throw him out. Maybe they should throw her out.
Yeah, it's a very corrupt. Corruption's going on as long as man has been walking on the earth. Like you, I mean,
boss tweet,
right? I mean, it's become normalized actually, but like you say, we have to sit back and let the justice system play itself out. There's quite a few charges here in this indictment, which I was on Newsmax this morning, and when when the indictments first started to come out. And this man, as the mayor, he's dealing with a bunch of people in city council and in government. And your relationship with the city council during your time as mayor, I'm sure, was considerably different than what
it was.
Adams has, right?
One of my best friends was Peter Vallone, who was the speaker, the Democratic. I met with him every week, and he continues to be somebody I love.
Yes, and here's where we sat together at his son's funeral, and when we think about what's gone on, every time this mayor tried to prosecute or let's take Randy Mastro for example.
Yeah, look at that. Well.
Here, this man was, appointed your first chief of staff, right? And then your deputy mayor of operations.
And he was a Democrat.
Yeah, I know. And they had a lynching part. I mean, it was 11 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know if you spoke to Randy since that had happened.
No, I think it was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, all he wanted to do was help. And he's a great lawyer.
But the city council that that I sit on these days, there's no two sides. Like you just made a very good point when you said Peter Vallone. He was the first speaker at city council. He's a Democrat, and you got along. Back in our day, because I'm new to politics. The Democrats spoke to the Republicans, and disagreed on the policy. Wasn't the issue. The issue was to discuss the policy and figure out the answers. So now we have a mayor that's been indicted. People are calling for his head on a platter. And a lot of those people are part of the council that I sit on. And a lot of people. Now, as far as I go, what they did to Randy Mastro is an abomination. A lot of these people went in, looked to persecute Randy using your name.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you should have heard me because they waited until 5:00 till they let me. And then, bam, I let them have it because the people that were actually not even born during 9/11. And I mean 2001, 9/11. But very funny. Most of them were just babies when you were mayor. So they were trying, Rudy, and they kept hammering. They came in with like little loose leaves of what questions and how they were going to try to nail this. It was horrible. And now, when you deal with Adams, this was, in my opinion, a step that Adams was taking to show some neutrality, that Randy was going to be very balanced. And I thought Randy was going to bring some balance to a very off-balanced city. This
wouldn't.
That is going to take years to get back. If you talk about the police and you disagree with anybody on council, aside from us, the 9 of us that sit on the Common Sense Caucus, we call ourselves, which is only made up of 3 Democrats. There's 51. It's not quite up, okay? When there's only 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats, We can't
Right.
even roll over any Democrats into our common sense caucus because you're not
Well,
going to
Vicky,
disagree.
Vicky, I'm going to tell you one thing I am sure of. Whether he's guilty or innocent, he wouldn't have been investigated if he hadn't criticized Biden. Because de Blasio, whatever Adams is guilty of, if he is guilty, de Blasio took a lot more money and got away with it.
$1 billion.
Got away with it completely because he sucked up to them. And he's a communist like they are.
You know, that's the thing. And
This guy,
I,
you know, you look at Menendez. They had the Menendez charges for 2 years, and they only used them when he started going against Biden. And this guy really criticized Biden, and they actually raided his top fundraiser when he was going to visit Biden in the White House to prevent the meeting.
the same day, the same
So
day, he was.
I don't care. I don't care if he's innocent or guilty. I'm telling you, if he had been a suck up to Biden and Harris, they would not touch him, no matter what he did.
You know, I agree with you 100% that I know these charges go back to 2016, but I think the Democrats are in the habit, and Republicans too probably, of gathering information over the years. And then when they're ready to, you know, really give somebody the left,
Absolutely.
they go into the files and they pull out stuff from 20 years ago. So
100%.
I do. Was that Rudy? I'm sorry.
100%. That's how Hillary got Biden to back out in 2016. She said she was going to lay out all of the corruption in Ukraine with Hunter and him and Joe. I mean, she knows that Joe is a big bribe taker,
A liar.
and a big and making big money like she and Bill were.
Yeah, I mean, tens of millions of dollars these people funneled from other countries. It's just, this is all, you know, a catastrophe for our city.
Yeah.
Because this goes to show you something, Rudy. If you don't march to the beat of their drum, that's the radical left drum, they will come down on you. And
I agree with you, Vicky. It's a shame, but let's hope we can change it this election day, huh?
you know, I have,
God willing.
I feel I've become somewhat of a voice for the city of New York.
You have. 100%. I love you.
As you know, it's the most important thing is we try to uphold the public trust. That's what we do. You know, that's why I ran for office. And you know,
It's terrific.
you can't double back on that. And when we run with our hearts and our minds and the people are first and foremost. So
Vicky, we got to run, but
okay.
I got to tell you, keep it up. You are you're a ray of hope in a very, very bleak city right now. But maybe that can all change. You know, I think if Trump gets elected, it's going to signal New York moving in the other direction. But let's see. God bless you, my dear. Love you. Man, you want this woman on your side. She is a fighter. Remember when Trump came up out of the dead? Fight, fight, fight. That's Vicky. We'll be back in a minute or two.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
We're back. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live.
I'm looking at my map.
America's Mayor.
This is Rudy Giuliani, and as Ted says, this is America's Mayor Live. You're looking at a map for a second there of Israel, the northern part of Israel, and that's where a war could break. I mean, it's already broken out. Really, Israel really devastated that whole southern part of Lebanon in the last a couple of days, starting with those incredible bombs or devices they had for their pagers and cell phones and other electronic devices. I mean, here's the thing about it that's really amazing: the Iranian Guard, which is their SS, stopped communicating because they're afraid. They're afraid that Israel has gotten into their cell phones and they're going to blow up. I mean, there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that they blew up 2 days. And it was a very smart idea, because this whole idea of killing civilians, they were ordered and bought for Hezbollah. So if you had one, you got it through Hezbollah, and you were an operative for Hezbollah because they were communication devices for Hezbollah. So yes, there were some collateral civilian casualties, but very small, because it was focused on the terrorists. And they took out about 15 or 20 of their leadership, of Hezbollah's leadership. They psychologically devastated them, and Iran. And then they followed it with 2 days of intense bombing. Now, the Hezbollah retaliated. Let's take a look at this. I'll show you what they did. They sent a bomb from Lebanon to Tel Aviv, which is here. Now, it didn't. David Sling, which is their more sophisticated Iron Dome, which all is as a result of the great Ronald Reagan, opposed bitterly by Dumbo Biden. They sent a ballistic missile, or a missile of some kind, toward Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv picked it up. I mean, the Israeli defense system picked it up, diverted it, didn't hurt anybody, didn't kill anybody. They shot off another couple of hundred rockets. I think no deaths, several injuries. I mean, I guess there's a point at which they could just send out so many missiles that it would be very, very hard to fight them all off. But so far, Israel has been very, very successful, and their defense system is held up, which is a credit to them. And of course, it's a credit to Ronald Reagan, who fought for nuclear defense, which the Democrats opposed. Up, right? Almost every day, Hezbollah has been bombing that area. It started off almost symbolic, and Israel would return. If they did bombing, they bomb back, back and forth back. And it was sort of almost an understanding it wouldn't break out into war. And then Hezbollah started doing 200 bombs, 100 bombs. And even though they weren't killing that many people, this whole area of Israel is in a turmoil because it's been evacuated. And there is a UN agreement, which means nothing, that they're not supposed to be in this zone here. I probably am exaggerating it just a little, but right in there where that red line is, that's supposed to be. That isn't exactly the word they use for it in their treaty, but or their document, but that would be a demilitarized zone. There aren't supposed to be any Hezbollah or Israelis in there, and there are no Israelis in there. A couple of years ago, they started to violate that, and they've been occupying that with Hezbollah. And even before this started, there'd be turmoil, and the Israelis would try to move them out of there by bombing them, and they'd bomb back. And then when Hamas engaged in that barbaric attack that is supported by American protesters, and seems to not really bother Harris and Biden and those communists, and they've been hitting. They've been in that zone, and they've been firing rockets from there since then. And Israel wants them out of that zone and back in here, and they're not doing it. So that's why Israel finally went in and is wiping them out. And I think they're going to continue to do it. Now, really, we're fighting with a stuffed dummy. The real culprit here is Iran. Iran funds them. Iran trains them, and you've got an Iranian guard in there, and we're paying for it. The only way Iran can afford that is the sanctions that have been lifted to the tune of billions and billions of dollars by Biden and Harris. The day Trump left office, Iran was flat broke. I have pictures. I'll go find them for you, and we'll call a Razor and get them. But I can show you pictures of Israelis protesting back during the Trump era, in which there were people offering their organs for sale because they were so poor. They were holding signs saying, "Kill the Ayatollah, get rid of the Ayatollah," which is a capital offense in Iran, which means they were, I would say, from what I know about prior revolutions, where, very often when there's an overthrow, you say, "Gee, I didn't know that was going to happen," right? Wow. They're at that stage, or they were at that stage in 2018, 2019, 2020. When people start protesting over food and being able to live, the regime's going to go. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. That's what was happening in Iran. Iran is not the Palestinian Authority. So when you say, "Oh, there are a lot of Palestinians that are really really nice and good and everything else," well, they be nice, but they want to kill us. They're trained that way from the time they're two, and 85% of them supported Hamas killing the Israeli children and babies and women. And they also taught to hate. Don't get all teary-eyed, because when they talk about death to Jews and death to Israel, they always include the big Satan, death to America. And since they've become funded by Iran, they've become worse. They're all funded by Iran, not just Hamas. The Palestinians are funded by Iran. So this idea that these idiots want to take Palestinians here is ridiculous. They won't take them in Jordan. That's over here, by the way. I want to say Jordan's right here, right there. They will not take a single Palestinian, nor will they take them down here in Egypt. And the Palestinians by nationality are probably ethnically Egyptian. Arafat was. There was no Palestinian nation ever. It was a name, not a nation, not even a people. There were Syrians, there were Egyptians, there were Arabs, there weren't Palestinians. Not 100 years ago. There have been Jews for beginning of recorded time. And where have they lived since the beginning of recorded time? Right near. There, here, right near. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. This is where all this here, all this whole territory, right there. For some reason, it's not clicking, but you can see it right there. That's it. I mean, the Jews have been there since obviously before Moses. I don't know. We go back to Adam and Eve if you want. The prayer next year in Jerusalem, which is said at the end of the dinner, the Shabbat dinner. I think it's said every Friday night. I think that's probably 1,050, probably 2,000 years old. Next year in Jerusalem, and the Jews don't have a claim on that land. Oh yeah, there were Arabs that lived there too, but not Palestinians. No such thing. Arafat actually used to say, I'm an Egyptian. I made this thing up. And then we got all these idiots. They don't know that history. They don't teach history anymore at our Marxist affected universities. So Israel did effectively intercept the missile, but it did constitute the first time that Hezbollah has gone for Tel Aviv. This is like if Ukraine goes for Moscow, right? We're very afraid, and legitimately, that if Ukraine goes for Moscow, Putin, who is not a wussy like Harris and Biden and stinking Blinken, who says that Ukraine can win, they sell them a bill of goods. They won't let them win. And maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. I mean, this is a very complicated issue because Putin has nuclear weapons. Not a few, not a couple like Iran. He's got massive nuclear arsenal, and he's got China there, who probably wouldn't help him if things came down to it. They'd like to see us both destroy ourselves, because actually, they're the tougher customer compared to Putin. Not that he isn't evil and terrible, but they're off the charts. And you got people like Walls who look like they're been groomed by China. And we're this close to putting them, in government. Well, I mean, actually, we never should have elected Biden after the family took so much money from Red China. Even if you didn't believe he got the money, which of course is on tape. I mean, even if you don't want to accept it, you can't stand saying that he got the money. How is a guy governing the United States whose family got 20 million at least from Red China over the 5-6 years before he came into office? I mean, that's unthinkable in prior times. If Americans had gotten money from the Soviet Union, they'd be hung, whether it was John Kennedy or Ronald Reagan. I mean, it would be not even the Kennedy family or the Reagan family got $20 million from Russia. They'd have been thrown out of office and probably prosecuted, and nobody would have believed they didn't share in it. Well, don't believe it because Joe did. Joe got half of everything Hunter made over 30 years. Well, how do I know that? Because Hunter said it. Why? We are corrupt. That's why this Adams thing is really perplexing, whether he himself is personally corrupt or not. I mean, I have seen situations where it can happen around you and you're not yourself corrupt. And of course, I've seen situations it's just the opposite. And therefore, given my fear of this entirely corrupt Biden-Harris administration and the Biden Bureau of Investigation, because of what they did to me and what they've done to Trump and what they did to my innocent friends. So many of them. And the fact that I do know for sure they singled them out, you got to just reserve judgment, which is what we're supposed to do anyway, as Americans. So Israel is now getting its army ready for war. And of course, Biden wants a 21-day ceasefire, which Israel would probably agree to. And who says no? Just like in Gaza, Hezbollah. They want to get even for what Israel did. They don't want a ceasefire. And meanwhile, while Biden is, sucking his thumb, and the first stepmother is running the government, Bibi's kicking the shit out of them. Keep it up. We got a demented president. He doesn't even know what you're doing. And by the way, when he says to people don't, they do. He told Putin don't. In fact, Harris went there 4 or 5 days before and put out a don't. 3 days later, he invaded and took 20% of Ukraine, ain't giving it back. And he's told Bibi don't. And a few times Bibi has listened to him, but he stopped listening to him, and he's wiping out Hamas. And if they keep doing it, he'll wipe out Hezbollah. Now, the problem with that is that still leaves Iran. Even if you wipe them both out, you still have Iran, which is why Iran is using them as proxies. It is killing an awful lot of them. It could destroy Hamas completely, and they've already seriously degraded Hezbollah. But Iran is fine; they're doing great. We should have bombed them a long time ago when they started killing our people. But that's okay. You can kill Americans now, and Biden will try to make an agreement with you. He doesn't really give a damn about American hostages, right? Never even talks about them. There are American hostages in Palestine. There are American hostages in Syria. There are American hostages in Iran still. We don't even know whether American. He doesn't care. Now, the October 7 families want the United Nations personnel who participated in the slaughter of October 7. They want them prosecuted. And the UN had originally said, when it came out, that a large portion of UNRWA is something like 80% is Palestinian, and a good percentage of them Hamas. And we've been feeding money to Hamas through the UN. Now, Trump, because he's a loyal American, cut off the United Nations Relief Organization, which is just a money source for Hamas. Well, Biden, of course, started a write-up consistent with the tradition of Obama, which is to fund terrorist groups. Obama was a major funder of Iran. Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. Never understood why people don't make that conclusion. It's pretty damn simple. Anyone with decency and common sense would agree that Iran is the biggest funder of terrorism in the world. What does it mean to fund terrorism? It means to give them money, right? So if you give Iran money, what's going to happen to some of that money? It's going to go to the terrorists. Now, what terrorists is it going to go to? Terrorists who want to kill Jews and terrorists who are killing Americans. I mean, some of that money was going to Soleimani, for example, that Biden sent there, and Obama in cash. And Soleimani killed a lot of Americans. So, I mean, it's a simple thing to say that Obama was funding the killing of his own citizens. And he's running around a multi-millionaire or billionaire and pontificating like the communist idiot that he is. Meanwhile, he was guilty of a very, very serious crime. in sending cash to a terrorist nation. It would be like sending cash to bin Laden back in the day. And the Justice Department is supporting the UN. It's now changed its position and insisting on immunity for the terrorists that work for the UN. I don't think they have immunity. To have diplomatic immunity, it has to be, and I know this really in detail because I was the first mayor to challenge this. So mayors in New York were complaining forever what the UN does to us. So UN people are disproportionately scumbags and criminals. Yeah, more than half. And you can't believe the perversions they engage. They beat the hell out of their wives because it's common in their country to do it. Beat the hell out of their children. The cops are called, and then they can't be prosecuted. They can just continue to beat their wives because they have diplomatic immunity. They can commit murder. Well, that one actually there's an exception for. But a lot of times it's overlooked. They just slip the person out. I had a very famous one where these two Russians beat up a cop badly, and they wanted to keep him here. And they wanted zoning and reason so they could expand their residences up in Riverdale, where I went to college. I never liked them being there when I went to college. I just cut them off. I say, you don't get shit until you pay your tickets and you get rid of those creeps. But nobody ever did that with them before. Every other mayor, well, maybe Koch, but every other mayor would, kiss their feet like the Democrats do.
Well, Mayor, do you think now's a good time to take a quick break? And when we come back, we have one of our field reporters live in Michigan, and I'll share with you over the commercial break. Oh, Mayor's getting excited here, and we'll come on here in just a minute. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Does he? Camera with him?
So we'll be right back in 60 seconds with a special report from the battleground state of Michigan.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
So now we're going to go, of course, 39 days until the election.
Oh, wow.
We're going to go live.
It's hard to believe. 39 days and the future of America is going to. Oh, there he is. There's Stephen.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Mayor Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor.
Stephen. Yeah, but who's operating the camera?
Stephen is operating it.
Hello, who's there?
Yeah, it's live. So if you don't want to be on live, cover your. Yeah, okay, we're all pretty. Hey, how are you? How are you?
Mayor's got some questions for you.
So
yeah, so
you in Michigan?
I am in Farmington Hills here at an event with Tiffany Trump father-in-law, Masad Boulos. Yes, sir. Oh, they're calling me up to the front.
He knows. Everybody give a round of applause for Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
Can you hear what's going on here? Everyone's chanting Rudy.
Well, that's terrific. But the event is for
It's a coalition event for President Trump, and people are fired up. Got some like more big guests than I could possibly name here, but it's just showing the broad Republican coalition in support of President Trump here.
Say hello to.
There he is. There he is. Mr. Detroit.
Oh, and also this is the Hamtramck table over here, making the news a lot lately. Obviously, some true patriots over there. Deputy mayor is here, I believe, right over here.
Like the mayor.
The mayor has obviously been very busy. Everyone's been wanting to get a hold of the mayor of Hamtramck lately, so that's exciting.
Great respect for him.
He has deep respect for you guys, and the mayor especially.
God bless you. God bless
Yeah,
you.
but this is fun. The party's kind of gotten a little bit quieter since we got live. Oh, and I promise the Albanians here. I promise the Albanians that we give them a little shout out here.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a nice ethnic diversity here, huh?
Oh, well, obviously the Chaldeans. We never forget the Chaldeans, honestly.
Oh,
and actually, there's more than one Chaldean table here. I know that. So, oh yeah, no, this is a broad coalition. We're having lots of fun. Great food, obviously, always. Oh yeah, and some Jewish. Oh yeah, we're having fun though. It's been a long campaign season, but we're having fun up here.
Oh, you can see that. You can see that. All right, are you here?
What's that?
I don't think you can.
Okay, we'll start. So we want to thank Stephen.
Yeah,
for giving them a
Thank you. This has been a great time, and everyone was thrilled that you called in. So thank you.
Okay. And I can't emphasize enough how important Michigan is. I would say this election really is about what would you say, 5 states, Ted? Well, we're going to go into this tomorrow night in more detail.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say if you really want to broaden it and you want to play devil's advocate, you could say nine states. But I could get it down to 5 and maybe 4.
We should start doing. This is giving me ideas, right? We'll do some focus groups with Stephen. We'll try to get some independents, stuff like that. That was great. That was real nice to see.
So we should explain to people the Chaldeans are Christians from Lebanon,
Iraq.
From Iraq, rather. Right?
My first girlfriend was Chaldean.
Yeah, from Iraq, and they have a lot of Christians from Lebanon. They've all been thrown out. A lot of them have been killed by the Muslim majority in Lebanon.
Hardworking.
Like, for example, the famous Danny Thomas and Marlo Thomas. They were Lebanese Catholic. They are Lebanese Catholic. He's dead now. Of course, she's alive and keeps up the St. Jude's Hospital. But they were Lebanese Catholic, and that was Lebanon had a major Catholic population. Much of it now gone or dead, because the Muslim extremists, or even the Muslim not so extremists, follow one version of the Quran, if you want to use it, which tells you to kill Christians.
And never mind
Muhammad wanted all the infidels either killed or pay. When he became like an organized criminal, he decided, okay, if they'll pay us, we'll let them remain Jews or Christians. So the whole thing turned into what the Islamic Republic of Iran is, which is an organized crime group posing as a religion. The mullahs, who people think are religious leaders, are not. They're extortionists. They run the various parts of Iran to keep it under the subjugation of the dictator, the Ayatollah, who is about as religious as nobody. It's a big charade. But they take the religion, and unfortunately, there are some things in the Quran that you can use if you want to. And then a lot of decent Muslims don't use it. But it's there. And let's not play pretend, because we're silly, woke jerks. And when you're a silly, woke jerk, bad people take advantage of you because you're a appeaser, like the the guy in the White House is not just a jerk; he's a criminal. He's a major criminal. It's really disgusting, and I probably know it better than anyone. And it really just drives me crazy that we have such a criminal, perverted family representing us. And look at the idiot. Did we find the one where yesterday the idiot got up in front of all the world leaders the day before and welcomed them to Washington? And he was in the middle of New York. Ted, did we find that one?
Yeah, let me just give me a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. We don't have a president now. I mean, there was a picture a couple of days ago of the first stepmother running a cabinet meeting. Well, I mean, nobody elected the first stepmother, and nobody voted for Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee. She was just put there by the crooked bosses of the Democrat Party, whoever the hell they are. I mean, I don't even know if Obama is. Obama wanted a mini primary.
He's not.
I don't think he wanted Kamala.
I don't think so either, and I think he's going to be proven to be right, and maybe even Joe Biden's going to be proven to be right.
Well,
there's a chance this thing falls apart.
Ways, but until somehow she did the coup, and she got Obama original statement was we should have a quick contested we should have a contested convention and let the delegates decide.
And Biden didn't come out and endorse Kamala.
They waited.
Not long, but he did wait.
Yeah, but he doesn't think. So it has to be the people
around him.
Yeah.
And I don't think him, to the degree that he's conscious, I bet you at this point, if I'm him, I don't want her to win.
You know, back in 2020 or 2019, the Soroses supported Harris as their candidate with all the Democrat candidates. And to some extent, so did Obama. And they focused on, after she blew up and Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her, which is why I think they hate Tulsi Gabbard and really drove her out of the party, including with threats and all kinds of crap they're doing now. It seems to me Biden and Obama learned their lesson about Harris. I think Obama realized she's too stupid to be president, or maybe too stupid to win. And I don't know if he would care if she was too stupid to be president, if he could control it, right? And he probably had other people in mind that at least have, an IQ or pass the bar exam. But he got rolled over. So there's some force in the party that's greater than Obama. Otherwise, I don't think we'd have Harris as the candidate. Could it be Soros who's running? I mean, he's got the money. And the kid walks around like he owns the place. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal today that says that the old man Soros was always very quiet and very sort of like the old mafia guys, very quiet about what he did, which is to ruin our country. But this guy is a big bragger.
Well, that picture
shrimp, yeah,
of him with walls. He's like,
he goes around talking about how they got like about 25 people in the administration, and they got 3 cabinet secretaries. I mean, he goes around talking about there are. Whereas Soros, the old man Soros, it was hard to get him to say anything. Of course, he had a strange background, and he did slip once. So maybe he decided he slipped once on 60 Minutes and basically admitted that he turned in his Jewish friends.
You were the one that told me about that.
Yeah, well, you can go watch it on television if you want.
We got to find that.
He was actually
right now.
Those were some of the happiest days of his life when he was turning in his friends to the Nazis. And then they have the nerve, and the kid does it too. They have the nerve to attack you as anti-Semitic if you attack him. They did that to me. They did that to me. They were gonna, when I criticized him, they began the attack that I was anti-Semitic, and I said, "Well, I'm a better Jew than him." And then they never asked, why am I a better Jew than him? And the reason is I never turned any Jews in to be killed. He did.
Watch this.
And he hates Israel.
From the Jews.
He hates Jews.
Yes. I mean, that sounds like it.
Yeah, it is.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours
Well, explain.
who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes,
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
that's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
My understanding.
Well, I'm going to tell you as a amateur psychiatrist that that's what's wrong with the guy. And he didn't just confiscate property. He turned people in. And he's a screwed up, massively sick individual as a result of that. And he's trying to destroy us. You don't put all those 40, 50 DAs who let criminals out on the street to kill people. And you're a normal person. You're not. I mean, I could make the case very convincingly that since the Civil War, we haven't anybody that has gotten more black people killed. I would think about it. He puts the first guy in Philadelphia 2 years in a row. Philadelphia sets a record in its long history for homicide. 70 to 80% of the people killed are black people. Chicago, he puts somebody in Chicago. I mean, every weekend there are more people killed than in most of the wars we were in, except the big one. And again, 7 to 8 out of 10 are blacks, and very often black children. St. Louis, I can go on, ladies and gentlemen. The guy has caused the death of more black people than anybody in this country since the Ku Klux Klan was at its height. But, he gets away with it because he funds everybody. He funds the Democrat Party. The same organization in 2020 was distributing money to Black Lives Matter and to Biden and to the Democrats in Congress, who came through the same organization of Soros. And he was the biggest contributor to all of those. And he was a big contributor to the recent protests at universities where, look, nobody was prosecuted again. And I am convinced through logic that one of the other reasons he put those prosecutors there is so you could do protests and nobody would go to jail. Because that's been incredible. All those protests, and you look at them now and you see buildings burning, and you look at walls in Minneapolis and Minnesota. He let a good portion of Minneapolis burn to the ground. And nobody went to jail, just about nobody. And the prosecutor was a sellout. And of course, that's one in which Harris raised money to let them out. And in doing that, they also slipped over and let out regular criminals, including rapists, possibly even a murderer or two. That's Harris, the one running. Is she? Are they finally seeing through her? I think so. I think the balloon is. I think they're really realizing there's no there as she goes through her ridiculous interviews. I mean, the one with Oprah Winfrey. I don't know. I mean, it looks like she needs like some kind of rehabilitation. She's not like a stupid child. And every time you ask her a question, she doesn't answer. She begins with, "I came from a middle class family, and then I'm going to first thing. What are you going to do when you get? What's the first thing you're going to do when you become president? First day, I'm going to work for the middle class and we have aspirations of solving all of these problems, and we'll first day we'll aspirate, and what the hell is she talking about? Well, some of the things she says are ridiculous. We are going to inspire people in order to inspire. Oh, that's good. That'd be really good to inspire people in order to inspire. That'd really change the country. This is the answers she gives. Maybe at the end she puts in well, she's actually stopped because she doesn't know what to say. For example, when she did her economic speech the other day, I listened very, very carefully. She never said rent control, but she did. She said, I'm going to go after the landlords and the bad guys, and I'm going to make sure that that they don't uh, charge anything excessive. Now, how the hell do you do that but with rent control? And then she got even closer with price controls because she had advocated price controls. Now she doesn't say price controls. She says, I'm going to go after the people who are gouging in the grocery industry and other industries, and I'll stop them. Now, there's only one way you can stop them, and that's controlling prices. And the idea that they're gouging, and that's the reason for it, is ridiculous. Even that complete idiot, Mark Cuban, who I've had the pleasure of debating, and I mean, it's like debating a guy with, I mean, the guy may be very successful, but he's not very smart. The idiot said, oh, no, it's not about price gouging. It's about inflation. Well, of course, she can't say that because they caused the inflation. The inflation means the inflation now. So she likes to say, well, Trump had more inflation, but that's just not true. When Trump left office, inflation was like less than 2%. It went up to 9% under them. Now it's down to 3, 2, wherever, but it's 30% higher than under Trump. And the inflation that took place is built into the prices that you pay. So if you go to the store now and you compare it to when Trump was president, you're paying anywhere from 30 to 100% more for grocery items. And grocery items we have to buy. We don't have a choice about it. These are not luxury cars. This is cereal. This is milk for the baby. We're paying 30% bare minimum to 90% more. And what they're crowing about is not that they reduced inflation. They reduced the increase in inflation. It's not increasing as much. It's still up. So the prices that went up stayed up, and now they're going up less. So they went up 9%, then they went up 7%. Now it's down to 2 or 3%, but it's still on a base where you got to build in all of that inflation that their $6 trillion in unnecessary spending caused. Much of it bribe money, much of it kickback, the kind of kickbacks that Adams is now dealing with in the migrant programs, because that's funded, with 3 times more money than you need. I mean, this has been the story of the Democrat Party from the day I left it, because I left it because of two reasons. One, the corruption that was involved in the Great Society programs, because I, as a young assistant U.S. attorney, investigated and uncovered major corruption in the Model Cities administration, which was intended to help poor people. And none of the money was getting to poor people. It was being taken by Democrat politicians. And I prosecuted them. I think we put 20 in jail. I wasn't even 30 years old then. And then at the same time, I was always very, very strongly anti-communist, because my parents, although one was a Democrat and one was a Republican, both shared in common a great hatred of communism, fear of communism, a legitimate fear of it. And so now we had the Democrats appeasing the communists, and we had the Democrats, I recognized earlier than some, used to use this idea of taking care of the poor as making the poor dependent on them. putting them in another form of slavery. And I did a lot about that when I became mayor, because I had to deal with 2 or 3 generations of people in New York who never worked. It wasn't their fault. They never learned. How do you learn the work ethic if you grow up in a welfare society? And Biden and Harris have built the welfare society to a mammoth institution now. I mean, remember when people were getting more on welfare than they do it in jobs? And then you got to take the minimum wage and move it up. So you kill small business. I mean, she's not a friend of small. They've destroyed more small businesses than any presidency. Their economic policies are pure excessive Marxism. I mean, she's in favor of price controls. She's in favor of rent control. Rent control is an absolute disaster. There are very left-wing economists that will tell you that price controls and rent controls are a disaster, like Jason Furman, who was Obama's chief economist. Now, he supports her, but he says that these controls would be a disaster. They'll ruin the economy that's already pretty ruined. So Cuban says, it's not gouging. There's no price gouging going on. I mean, I don't know every industry. I'm not going to say that about everything, like the energy industry or the military industrial complex. But the area that is of most concern is groceries. Now, the grocery industry is not a heavy profit industry. It's unlike the energy industry. So the average profit there is 2% or less. So if you remove gouging, you're going to remove the profit, which means people will no longer sell food. They'll go do something else with their money, and we won't have enough food. I mean, this is totally unacceptable. So here's my problem with Soros's friend Walls. He calls himself, the little creep Soros calls himself a Walsified. He's going out with Hillary's friend, Wiener's Uba Huba. He's going out with Uba Huba now. And you take a look at her background. And he had a whole big thing with Walt. You have a picture of them together? I showed you. I showed you. I gave you some. Yeah, I gave you some kind of picture of the little creep with Walls.
I'll get it.
I mean, they belong with each other. I don't know. I don't know if Soros is a communist or what the hell he is. He's a nihilist. That's for sure. He wants us destroyed so he can create a world government. And he hates American nationalism, which means you got to hate America. What is nationalism but love of your country? That's all it is. I mean, excessive nationalism, fine, but excessive anything is terrible. There's the little creep pointing. I don't know what the hell he's pointing at with the Chinese teacher there, the red Chinese teacher, the red Chinese professor. He must be very comfortable with Walls because they both espouse all kinds of communist propaganda. And that guy funds it to the tune of 40 million, 50 million. That guy and his father, as I said, got more black people killed than just about anybody in the last 30 or 40 years. But the thing that Walls is a living, walking example of why people wonder, how did our education system turn out so many Marxists? Walking in the streets supporting a terrorist group, Hamas. I mean, I don't remember protests in favor of terrorist groups ever before. It means the Marxists have made real inroads. Well, Walls is a perfect example of that. Walls gets recruited by Harvard as a young flunky teacher, which is what he was. He was a drunk, got caught drunk driving, imperiling the lives of his students by driving around drunk, lies about it like crazy. He's a guy that has no character. Unit goes off to war and he punks out. The minister of the unit, you can talk to the other people there, the minister of the unit says he's a coward, a complete coward. But, that's one thing. The other thing is, as a young man, he gets recruited. He goes to China. He has some kind of training in China under the auspices of Harvard, which has had several people prosecuted in their programs as Chinese spies. And one of the universities that collaborates the most with the Red Chinese and takes their blood money. And then he goes back for 30 years and teaches there every year under the auspices for a while, if not all the time, of the University of Shanghai. And he brings young people with him. All that sounds great unless you are knowledgeable. Spend a little time reading about China. You don't get to teach in China unless you teach what they want you to teach. So Walls didn't go to China for 30 years and teach them how there's a much better way of life, as they're getting killed more than any other group of people by their leader. He doesn't do that. He wouldn't be invited back, or maybe he wouldn't be around. And he brings young people with him to subject them to the same bullshit that he was subjected to. And maybe they're going to walk away if you groom them enough to think that socialism, one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness. I mean, to me, when I first heard that, when I didn't know this teaching thing for 30 years, I said, this guy's either a fool or he's a communist. Yeah, particularly if you've been to China. And I thought he was to China 2-3 times. If you've been to China and you go around saying socialism is equivalent to neighborliness, well, then there's something wrong with you. Then you shouldn't be anywhere near the White House, because our epic struggle is going to be with China. They want to destroy us, and they're doing a pretty good job of it for free. Look at the drugs coming in. Fentanyl. Where does it come from? Ted, where does it come from? Where does fentanyl come from?
China.
Yeah, it comes from China. Just about all of it, 80-90% of it. And the Chinese make billions on it. So the Chinese are getting rich by sending unlimited amounts of fentanyl into the. It's unlimited now because we don't know how much is coming in. It comes in secretly in those little places in between border stations, of which there are many, and the cartels know them. So the fentanyl comes in, China makes the money, and then China gets an extra benefit out of it. They kill our young people. A lot of people being killed by now with drug overdoses are not necessarily degenerate drug addicts like Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was the perfect definition of a lifetime degenerate drug addict. In and out of rehabilitation so many times you can't even count it. And rehabilitation was a joke. You'd have prostitutes come, you'd get drugs in the rehabilitation place. That's all on the hard drive. They don't tell you about it. He once used a credit card of his father's to pay off a prostitute, but a lot of money. Like he owed her like 10 grand or something, 20 grand. And his cards weren't working. So finally he reached in and used a credit card that either his father had or he had with his father. And within a very short period of time, the Secret Service showed up to protect Joe and get that credit card and get the thing reversed. Secret Service showed up when when the gun was found. They wanted the paperwork from the gun dealer. And the gun dealer said, "Screw you! I'm not giving you the paperwork. I'll give it to ATF. I know why you're here. That guy's smarter than most of the reporters in Washington." Secret Service is in Biden's pocket, like the FBI or the Democrats' pocket, not just Biden. And that's why I'm very worried for my friend. We've got this assassination attempt or attempts being investigated by the Biden Bureau of Investigation, or maybe the Harris Bureau of Investigation, or the Democratic Bureau of Investigation. It's no longer our Bureau of Investigation. They want to put us in jail. They sure tried with me. They couldn't do it. But then the two crooked prosecutors in Georgia and in Arizona did, prosecuting me for being a lawyer, along with other lawyers, because Trump's not entitled to a defense, or Trump's not entitled to contest the election. Not entitled to have a lawyer. He's not entitled to. The rights under the Fourth Amendment to be secure in your home, because they can come in and do a raid on Mar-a-Lago for no reason at all, for reasons that they should have done to Biden for years, who stole documents like that and made them available to China, which, again, nobody tells you. But I do, because I know the hard drive backwards and forwards, and I know what they're covering up. And it's going to continue, right? It isn't just Biden. Biden was a terrific instrument for them because he was always stupid, like she is. He was getting senile, and he's crooked as hell. So they owned him. They could get him out anytime they wanted. Just like Zelensky, they had the goods on him. I mean, I don't know how true this is, but it sounds true to me that Hillary backed him out of the 2016 election by saying that she would reveal the criminality of him and his son in Ukraine, which she knew about.
Really?
Right. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it sounds like it's true, because the New York Times did an article in 2015 that if you were at all smart, you'd figure it all out just from that article. The article was in December of 2015, and it basically said that this would be a real problem for Obama, because he appointed Biden to deal with corruption in Ukraine, and his son was working for the biggest crook in Ukraine. And Zlochevsky. If you read that, and you were in the White House, and you were Obama, and you were straight, you'd have kicked him in the ass, and you'd gotten the kid out of there immediately. But you wouldn't have a guy near you who had a son who was involved with a major crook in Ukraine when you're trying to stop corruption in Ukraine. But Obama had no interest in stopping corruption in Ukraine. In fact, he may have started it. So any ethical president would have immediately jumped on his vice president when you read that article. Having been a mayor, I know if any of my people were in a situation like that, they'd be in my office right away. And I would have said, or if I had been president, I would have said to the vice president, get your kid out of there right now. What are we doing? And I'm going to get you out of being the point man for Ukraine, because you're conflicted. You got a kid that's involved with one of the biggest crooks in Ukraine, who happens to be pro-Russian, which the complexity of that would escape most people, but not if you know Ukraine. I mean, what the Bidens who now are supporting the son of the crook, Zelensky, right? When I say son, I mean that in a sort of general way, because his godfather or his rabbi was the major money launderer in Eastern Europe, and has the goods on everybody, as he does in his files. I mean, I've seen some of the files. I haven't seen all of them. Just give me the ones that I've seen. You want to see them. But I also like to see the other ones that were getting money from Ukraine, because I'm told, well, wait now. Let me be perfectly clear about this. I was told by a very, very good Ukrainian police officer, detective, intelligence expert, that the reason that they're going to crucify you, Giuliani, is that it's not just Biden. If you break this open, a lot of heads are going to roll in Washington. They won't all be Democrats, mostly, because this thing started under the auspices of the Obama administration back in 12 or 13 or 14, or I've forgotten exactly the date. Yeah, and some kind of an investment that was made. And he said it's a lot of people. A lot of people even, I think, put a number on it, like 10 or whatever. I mean, it isn't like, when I say a lot of people, it isn't like 1,000 or, and of course that makes sense. Why would they cover this up if some of them weren't involved in it themselves? You look at McConnell. So McConnell has always been very, very reluctant to do anything about Biden. But McConnell's got his own problem with his father-in-law, who's from Taiwan and is making a fortune with the Red Chinese, of which he's given some of that blood money to the McConnells. So you wonder why McConnell is so anti-Trump. I mean, I know major fundraisers for Trump that wouldn't raise money for him in 20 because he was too hard on China. Well, McConnell has to be in that position. His wife's family is one of the richest families in China, but they actually come from Taiwan. Now, I don't understand how you become a billionaire in China, Red China, if you come from Taiwan and you're still loyal to Taiwan. I mean, I experienced this myself when I was in Beijing, and I met with the head of the Communist Party of Beijing. And we had a perfectly fine conversation until we got to Taiwan. And when he realized what I was saying about Taiwan, he got up and threw me out. He got up, but very nicely, just get up and said, thank you, our conversation's over. I basically told him, instead of threatening everybody and doing everything else, why don't you create a democracy here? Why would Taiwan want to join you? It took them a while. I mean, when Chiang Kai-shek first took the nationalists to Taiwan, they were a dictatorship. And it took them a long time to become a rule of law democracy. Now they become a democracy and they want to be taken over by the worst dictatorship in the world? That doesn't make sense. So why don't you start introducing democratic values here? Start with keeping your word with regard to Hong Kong. I mean, that's not going to help you with Taiwan after you promised to let them be autonomous and now you're cracking down on them. So that had been translated improperly. And my translator told me that the communist translator had not really gotten the full meaning of what I was saying, because the guy is still looking at me like, I thought, wow, maybe I persuaded him. And I said, well, why don't you repeat for him what I said exactly the way I said it? So my translator said, you really want me to do that? I said, yeah. Let's see what happens. So he repeats it. The little guy gets up and shakes my hand and says, thank you very much. Our meeting's over. And I get back to my room, and my security guys, every night they would leave little things. So they went through everything in your room. And then they tried to put a spy in with us. And I'll tell you that story sometime. It's my experience with China, which is why when I heard that Walls had his best vacation in China, he says that, went on his honeymoon to China and used the date of Tiananmen Square for the date of his wedding so he could remember it. I said, we got a screwball here. Now it's worse than that, because I didn't know about the 30 times he went to teach there. And what amazes me about my country is that nobody cares. This may be one of the most important things in the election, that they're trying to put one of the guys they groomed in. But I mean, you got to think, well, they've already done that with Biden. They owned him with the money they gave him, and he paid them back. He gave him Bagram Air Base. So we're coming into the weekend. It'll be tomorrow. It'll be Friday. Tomorrow night, we're going to spend most of our time on the election, unless there's a big, we're always subjected to the things that happen now, which every day are like,
24 hours ago, we weren't preparing for we learned about Eric Adams after we got off the air.
Yeah, we learned about Adams after we got off the air, and I woke up this morning and they had raided my old house, Crazy Mansion. The FBI raided my new house and my old house. They raided my house. They didn't find anything. Let's hope for Adam's sake they raided his house and didn't find anything. His lawyers said they raided it to get his phone, but they wanted to do it for a show. And he'd have been willing to give him the phone.
Yeah.
I'd have been willing to give them everything in my house. They didn't have to come and raid me.
Absurd.
I helped them get it. And then I tried to offer them Hunter's hard drive, and they wouldn't take it. I said, you can have the hard drive. But no, I did it. I said, I have two versions of it. I've got the original version that has the child pornography, and I have the other version that doesn't. Because once we realized it was child pornography, we went and reported it to the Delaware police, put that in a safe, made a copy of it from then on that I gave out that didn't include it. And so I said, you can take either or both. And they said, now it turns out that would have been the only incriminating evidence that I had, because a year and a half later, they had to write a letter to the grand jury saying they found no evidence. They even used the words that are amazing. They said, there's no probable cause that he committed a crime. So what happened to the probable cause that would support a search warrant and make it legal? But we don't have those. We don't have the Fourth Amendment anymore for a Republican. And we don't need a Fourth Amendment for a Democrat, because as long as you're a loyal soldier and a communist and whatever the hell they want you to be, they won't prosecute you. But if you open your mouth like Harris, who knows what they're going to do to you? Not like Harris, like Adams, rather. Harris opens her mouth, but she does other things. So tomorrow night, we got the map. I just want to share with you the chart that was in this article done by Jonathan Turley in the Post today, because it says, first, I want to put this out up right there. Can they see that? Want to hold that in front of the camera? Maybe you can put it in front of that camera, or I can read it. I can read it.
I gotta take a picture of it and then I upload it.
Yeah. Well, here's what it basically says. And it's really one of the most concerning things to me. I think there are two things that they did a great job, the communists did, of infiltrating and taking over. One is the media, which is ridiculously left-wing. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a joke. I mean, not a joke. It's a tragedy. It's so ridiculous the way they cover things. They lie so much. I don't think I've read anything truthful about me in years. I mean, there used to be things where there was some truth to it and they exaggerated it. Now they just make stuff up. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not. I'm no saint. You know my sins. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't think I could have done the things I did if I was an alcoholic. But in any event, I'm not. If I was an alcoholic and I'd gone for rehabilitation, I'd be proud of the fact that I went for rehabilitation. I must have gone for rehabilitation to do the jobs that I do. But they insisted I'm not. That little creep, Olivia Nuzzi, wrote an article about me suggesting that I was an alcoholic, which I'm not. That's why I really sympathize with RFK. And now I see she was with that complete nut job, Olbermann. She lived with him for 3 years when she was 21. I mean, she's a screwball, Newsy. And I'm sure she was hounding RFK Jr. I mean, he blocked her from his phone 4 or 5 times.
Sure.
That's got to tell you everything, right? That's got to tell you everything.
Yeah, here's the chart.
So there's the chart. Americans who have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in higher education. In 2015, that was 57%. In 2018, it went down to 48%. It's now down to 36% that have a great deal, or quite a lot of confidence in higher education. 57% down to 36%. Among Republicans, the drop is huge. Among Republicans, it's gone down from 56% in 2015, which was consistent with the 57% nationally. Republicans right on. It's down to less than 20% now. Total undergraduate enrollment nationwide. It was 18.1 million. It's now down to 15.4 million. And I don't know what I would do about college now for my kids. I don't know what I would do. or even education. I mean, I've become a big fan of homeschooling, big fan of homeschooling, or cooperative homeschooling, where you can work with friends and who are like, you know, if I were doing it all over again, of course, I don't know if my wife would have agreed to this. I could teach political science. I could teach economics. I could teach, you know, to grade level things. I could teach geography. I love geography.
You could teach almost any subject.
I could teach literature if you want. I mean,
even a subject you're not.
Everything.
Yeah, I give you a day to catch up on a subject. You could teach it the next day.
I could. But I mean, those are the ones I would teach. And then maybe I'd have a friend who's scientifically oriented, right? And they could teach chemistry, and we teach them the subject, not indoctrinate them the way Walls does. That's why I find Walls to be a great example of what the teachers union did. The teachers union, which began with communists, has become totally communist. And Randy Weingarten, I know from years of negotiating with her, and she is an out and out communist. A seriously dangerous person who has done more damage by keeping the schools closed for so long to our children than anybody I can think of, except maybe for Soros, because he gets so many of them killed. Well, we'll bring you up to date on the election, so no reason to go into polls now. I can tell you they've changed a lot back to where they're headed back to where they were before Scatterbrain got in the election. And but you know, there's still a lot of toss-up places that we have to look at. So we'll do that tomorrow night. We've pretty much prepared to do. We'll have to do a little more work on it, and we'll see if we can get a conversation going. Okay.
Great.
So again, I want you to pray for the people of Ukraine, because they're the victims of a corrupt regime there and a very corrupt regime here that has sucked their blood out. Pray for the people of Israel that our regime in Washington is double-crossed. And pray for us that we have the wisdom, God, to get through this in the right way. God bless America. See you tomorrow night.
Bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,